Veterans, and thank you for watching this edition of Meet the Candidates 2024. My name is Jonathan McLeese. I'm a compatriot from Admiral Raphael Semmes Camp number 1321 out of Dearborn, Michigan.
Nice to meet y'all. My name is Vinny. Some of y'all know me as Cousin Vinny, compatriot from Private Meredith Poole, Camp 1505 in New Jersey.
Awesome. Thank you, Vinny. And for the next little while, we're going to be chatting with Chuck McMichael, a candidate running for Army of Trans-Mississippi Councilman at the 2024 National Reunion of the Sons of Confederate Veterans in North Charleston, South Carolina this upcoming July. Before we get started, let me deliver the following disclaimer. This program and the views or opinions that follow are not authorized or endorsed by the Sons of Confederate Veterans, its General Executive Council, Army departments, divisions, brigades, camps, or any other subsidiary of the SCV. This is simply a program made by SCV members for the benefit of the SCV membership, giving members an opportunity to see and hear from candidates running for office in 2024 that have a position on the General Executive Council. And without further delay, we will introduce our guest, Chuck McMichael. Thank you for coming on tonight, Chuck. How you doing?
It's fine. I'll give you my bona fides. I'm Chuck McMichael. I belong to the Lieutenant General Richard Taylor Camp, 1308 in Shreveport, Louisiana. And in May will be my 30th anniversary of being an SEV member.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. All right. Well,
I was only 2 when I joined.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And you've always been there in Louisiana. As far as with the SCV.
Earlier in my life, I lived a couple other places. I have lived in Tennessee and Mississippi at various points in my life, yes, but born and raised Louisiana.
Awesome. Well, are you ready to get started with what we got planned here for today?
Let's see, who's it? Pat Benatar, hit me with your best shot.
Awesome. So I'll start off but before we get to the questions, I just want to ask briefly, if you would, to please introduce yourself, which you already did that, but give everyone a little bit of your background and your SCV credentials.
Well, I guess really the main credential is, I've already said, I've been a member of the SCV for almost 30 years. I like to think I've been an active member. I have served in various capacities. Camp commander, I've been past Louisiana Division commander, which I'm very proud of that. Served as chief of staff for Commander-in-Chief Ed Deason. That was my first time on the GEC. I had served 1 term before as ATM councilman, and then went straight from that to commander-in-chief. But I've just done other things that aren't title specific, like a lot of SCV members have, are doing our camp parades and setting up festivals at booths and doing recruiting and going to division events. I've been to some really cool stuff over the year. I was at the flag rally in Charleston in 2000, where we had 12,000 Confederates with flags marching down the main street in Columbia, South Carolina. I was marching the funeral of the Hunley crew. So I've been able to do a lot of really cool stuff. I was at I took part in the grand opening of both presidential libraries at Beauvoir. The first one, I commanded one of the main color guards, and then of course, Hurricane Katrina took it out. And then we did a sesquicentennial event that I was in charge of that committee too, for the reopening of the new library, which is there now. So I've just done a lot of varied stuff, recruiting, grave marking. I've done my share of putting up headstones. I've put 7 Confederate headstones on some of my own ancestors over the years. And so, that's SCV stuff, personal stuff. Y'all both know, or I think John got to meet at the reinterment, my wife. Vinny certainly knows my wife, Belinda. We've been married almost, I'll just say, for over 40 years, because of course I married a much younger woman than myself. I have a son, Evan, who's a local attorney, and I graduated high school here in Shreveport. I got my BA from Louisiana Tech University, and I got a master's degree from LSU in Shreveport. And I did a summer study tour at the University of London one year. So
That's
I don't know what else
awesome.
you want to know. I'm
No,
a Pisces.
that's fantastic. Go ahead, Vinny, if you got something you want to throw out there.
Absolutely. So I was going to ask, could you please define the function of the office you seek and what qualifies you for that position?
Okay. The office of councilman is actually a twofold office. You're not the commander of the Army. That's a completely different thing. Army specific, the councilman is so-called the voice of the membership. He's kind of responsible for listening to the concerns of the members, taking them before the appropriate people, either on the GEC or national committees or things like that. Not to disrupt or go around the chain of command. That's what you go through, I would say disciplinary matters, organizational matters. It's like, hey, can we do this or not do that? Here's an idea, those sorts of things. And to communicate back to the members what's going on the national level. That's the representative part of the job. But also being on the GEC, you also have an obligation there to look after the general welfare and the good standing of the organization as a whole. You are part of the National Board of Directors for the corporation that is the Sons of Confederate Veterans. So you not only have an organizational, you have a fiduciary duty, and just like you would for any other corporation. So there's more than one facet to the job of councilman. As far as what I bring to it, I've been councilman before. Well, who cares? Ronald Reagan said one time, there's a difference between 30 years of experience and 1 year of experience 30 times. So I would like to say, I just think I bring not only a lot of experience, but experience hopefully I've learned from and proved that I maybe have some good ideas once in a while, and that I'm responsive to the membership. That's one of the big things that I like to think I put at the foremost of my activity. And the reason I'm running is the only reason I've ever run for anything is because I had something I wanted to get done. I don't care about a title or office, but being on the GEC gives you a chance to make proposals, make the motions, give your input on what's going on, and have a direct impact on the shape and the future of the SCV. So that's why I would be running for the office, to represent the members and to have a direct impact on some of the things, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, that I would like to see done in the near future.
Awesome. So the next question that I have is, for years, there has been discussion about improving communications in the SCV. If elected, how would you propose changing communications for the better?
Well, in some ways, not to get too political, but it's kind of like the southern border. We already have all the laws we need to fix the border. In many ways, we already have all the tools we need to improve the communication. We're just not always using them to the most effect. When I was commander in chief, I know that's WIWCIC, whatever. We had a email list, and it kind of broke down. So one of the first things that I did, working with Executive Director Ben Sewell, was to start the SCV Telegraph, which still runs up and running. And over the years, getting people to sign up and be on it, I've always been an advocate that we should just put our members on it, whether they ask to or not. When you become a member, you're on the Telegraph. It's easy to click that one unsubscribe button, but we have members on it. We also need to use it. We need to, I don't mean flood them all the time, like advertisers do, but use it more to get information. Here's what is going on. One of the things I want to do as councilman is go on the ATM Facebook page whenever we have a meeting and say, hey, we just had a meeting. Here's some of the stuff we've talked about. We need to do that. And I've talked to Lieutenant Commander Kennedy, who's likely to be the next commander in chief, and he wants to as well start putting out summaries to the membership after we have meetings. So that's a thing that we have the ability already to do that we can improve more on. As far as that's one way. I've said for several years now, why does the SCV not have official Twitter account? You don't have to get on there and argue with people. You just use it to make statements. You let them argue. Of course, with the community note stuff now, that's a lot better too. I'm not on it. I've never used it, but I understand the purpose. I just don't have time with it, and I don't suffer fools easily. But as it turns out, we have a Twitter account. Just nobody's using it. I think we need to find somebody who's good at that stuff, give them the key to it, and we'll say, here's a press release from us, put it on, and we would have all kind of followers that aren't even SCV members. I don't see why we don't have an Instagram account. Another thing, and the secession camp does this already, and those of you that are doing this sort of stuff, especially those that are either doing talk shows on Facebook, like Monuments Across Dixie and SCV Chat, and 4 or 5 of them we've got out there, convert them to a YouTube channel, because you're going to get a lot more eyeballs that way. And the other thing we need to create, which is really where most of the clicks are going on YouTube now, is what are called YouTube Shorts. You can get on those. It's a rabbit hole. You can spend an hour watching 2-minute videos, one after the other. And that's how I first saw the one that the secession camp makes. So we need to get a lot more content on YouTube, put the same stuff on Rumble as well, for whatever, and make some YouTube shorts that are very informative and give our contact information. So those are some main areas that we can be doing, communicate not only with our members, but with the general public as well, that are laid out before us. We've just not maximized their potential yet. I will say, in the past, we used to talk about, oh, if we could only get an ad in the NRA magazine. Yeah, that'd be great, but they're not going to take our ad. And in general, print media is dying anyway. I wouldn't waste time putting an ad in a local newspaper, unless it's a shopper you can do for $10 or something. Now, local talk radio, that's a different story. And we have quite a bit of radio commercials available that have done through our Confederate Legion and some of those and through the Heritage Defense and Ops that are out there already that can be used by camps. They just need to download them and take them to their local radio stations. And I'm sure there's 100 other things that can be done too. But that's what comes off the top of my head.
I think that's a great answer, and I love that you brought up the shorts, YouTube and Rumble and Facebook shorts. We've got we've got a huge organization of 30,000 members, or roughly. There's got to be some really good people with digital video capability and skill to put some stuff like that together. If we can get them on that, man, we can really get the message out there.
I also loved your point about print media dying out, because as an educator, I used to do an assignment where I would have the learners do a newspaper for the Gilded Age. And I had one learner say, Mr. B, do they still make newspapers? There's young people that don't even know that newspapers exist, albeit they're shrinking. But right, most media is all through YouTube, online, shorts, those little snippets. A great point on that.
In fact, to tell you how long it's been that way, I've been retired almost 10 years. But when I was teaching, American history teacher next door to me was already using Facebook instead of print media, would have students rehearse a historical figure and make up a mock Facebook page for that historical figure. How's that for an idea?
I love that.
So, we could have, why doesn't Stonewall Jackson have a Facebook page? So yeah, that's what I'm saying. They were 10 years ago, educators were using Facebook and stuff like that instead of newspaper articles. So
That's a
yes.
fantastic idea. I love it. Want to go ahead with the next question, Vinny?
Sure. My next question I have for Past Commander-in-Chief McMichael is, with community service, do you support the Sons of Confederate Veterans being involved in community service projects, helping those outside of the SCV? If yes, what ideas do you have? And if no, elaborate why not?
Okay, that's a mixed question because a lot of our camps have done a lot of that over the years. So, I've observed that our camp's done some of it. There's some of it that works and some of it that doesn't. At one time, especially back in the 90s, a real popular thing was to adopt the highway thing, where people drive by this area of the highway is claimed by the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Well, do they let us put our web address on that sign? Okay, well, Sons of Confederate, that's nice. The other problem we had was our so-called enemies would make sure that's where they dumped their trash. So people would say, maintained by the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and they would see trash. So you kind of have to watch what kind of community service you're doing. Now, we have actually here in Shreveport was the very world's first Shriners Hospital for Children. So that is something good that you can do donations and stuff with, like I'd say, a Shriners Hospital or St. Jude's or things like that, that to show that we are a part of our community. Volunteer work, there's all kinds of things you can do. Like I said, some charitable organizations that are very worthwhile, some are not. Fortunately, there are websites that show how much charities actually give to people and how much they keep for themselves. There's been several big stinks about that. But there are other service projects you can do. If you've got elderly people that you can go do yard work for them and they get your picture in the local paper. So yeah, if you look at our Constitution, part of it says benevolent organization. And what the word benevolent means is you're doing good for other people besides yourself. So yes,
Right.
We should be doing community projects and if possible, get some good PR out of it. But that should not be the only reason we're doing it. We should be doing it because it's a good thing to do, like offering scholarships and giving out Hunley Awards to ROTC students. All that community involvement, because we do want to be considered a legitimate part of the communities we're in, because we are. So we might as well take that spot.
100%. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that answer. My next question is, what new and innovative ideas do you have to increase long-term revenue coming into the SCV?
Okay, I have a tendency to sometimes be a little obtuse and silly. So I can give you my obtuse answers. We can set up a monthly blood donation program for our members. Because you can get like what, $10 a pint? So what if we had 10,000 members giving a pint every month? Okay, whatever.
The Bloody Bill.
And that goes into community service as well.
Yeah, we can call it the Bloody Bill program. Exactly. But actually, that's a good community service program. We could, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got one member of our camp who has a rare blood type, who's a regular donor, and sometimes they'll tell him wait until we need you, and we have this person. He goes and he's gotten several awards for his blood donation, having a rare blood type for the local hospital and stuff. So that's a crazy one, but I don't know. But the Bloody Bill program, it's got a ring to it. Can you imagine the gewgaw that you get with anyway? A little syringe with Bill Anderson's picture on it. We're doing an oratory speech now.
We can wave the bloody shirt.
Yeah, but there's a lot of, we used to have some that are harder to get now, or we're not going to get. At one time, we had an SCV credit card, premium credit card, where you would get back a certain percent would come to the SCV. Well, many years ago, they were like, well, you can't put SCV. And so when I was commander, I tried to get a new card, and there was nobody. They wouldn't even do a card that just said SCV on it. No flag, no pictures, nothing. And of course, the way the financial stuff is, hardly anybody has a premium card anymore. The NRA had theirs canceled. They don't have a card anymore. So that's not something we could do. We've tried before having our own cell plan back around 2007, 2008. And this company was going to give us, what was then the state-of-the-art phone, was a Motorola Razr, which they're actually making again. And it would come loaded with the SCV logo, and we would get a percent of the sales. 3 people signed up for that. Myself and Ben Sewell were 2 of them, because people were already then locked into plans, and they weren't going to cancel and not get a service. We tried having our own internet service. It was confederate.org back when it was all dial-up, because it didn't matter who your internet service was, because it was all dial-up.
Right.
And so, but when that went away, when people started having cable internet and all that sort of thing, internet that actually works. So there's a lot of revenue streams. So we have to look to future revenue stuff. There are some websites we used to do Amazon Smile, but they don't really do that anymore either. So we've really got to start looking out there. The problem is the way the economy, I don't mean now, it's bad now, but I mean the way it's structured now is not friendly to any nonprofit organization. How does the Optimist Club make money, or the Lions Club, or any of those? I think the Lions Club used to do those gum machines, and things like that, but I don't know how well, and I don't think how many stores would let us put a gum machine with a battle flag on it, or how long it would last. So far as revenue, we have special programs we do where compatriots can give extra donations, but we need to look for ways to make money, not just from our members. And I guess the main thing to do that would be to expand merchandising ideas. Okay, for example, a lot of people, lots of places buy cheap 3x5 Confederate battle flags. How come they're not buying them from us? We kind of had that program, but we've got our own camps who don't necessarily buy their stuff from headquarters. So one thing we could do is increase merchandising, and not necessarily flags, but we've got a lot of stuff merchandise, and we've done a pretty good job. We've got some really cool stuff in our gift shop now, if we maybe just need to spread out the advertising of them. So merchandising is one thing that we can do more of that's focused toward the general public. But it's tough after that. It's, we can't get into, pyramid schemes. We're not going to set up selling Tupperware to the SCV or something like that, because the economy just doesn't work that way anymore. One of the things we can do that we already have done is people, in their financial planning, but unfortunately for that to happen, somebody has to die. But we've gotten, good things like that people have fortunately remembered us. So we really have to think, I'm not a financial fundraising expert here, and all the time I was teaching school where they were selling world's finest chocolate and knocking on doors, go buy whatever your kid was selling. Well, now there are some places where the local camps have had much more success by doing turkey shoots or selling Vidalia onions, or camps that sell Boston butts, which, it's most of the people from Boston, as far as I'm concerned. And local camps have, because they're working in their own neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So there are maybe one thing to do is to work on tools that we can give local camps so that they can do the fundraising, and not necessarily all have it be on the national level. Because I don't think we really want to get into, those sorts of things on a national level. other than our own merchandising. And of course, special programs that we do. But as far as premium programs, companies just don't offer those anymore like they used to, as far as credit cards and calling cards and those sorts of things. You can't even get rental car benefits or anything like that anymore. So we really have to look at some non-traditional stuff. But merchandise sales to non-members would be something we could really be good, because we're not just milking our own members at that point, but it would take somebody more with a merchandising background to know what those kind of items might be, which I'm sure we can find people in the SCV that have that experience. So there's a few ideas.
Well, that's one of the things I've said for a long time to some folks is there's an endless opportunity to come out with some really cool T-shirts, but you just have to have somebody design them and print them and sell them. And they don't have to have the member logo or anything on them like that. But there's other websites that are doing similar things. Why didn't we jump on that yet? That's just been a thought of mine.
Yep.
A lot of missed opportunities for sure. And the innovation is just so talented, like with phone lines, credit. I remember the credit card. I had several members mention that would not fly today with the battle flag, but that is such a cool idea. And all that.
They were great, but you can't get one now.
And then some of these young people, as you know, and a lot of them don't even use credit cards anymore. It's just virtual stuff that I'm still adjusting to.
Yeah, my son never has cash.
That's another concerning thing, another dying thing. And speaking of
but it doesn't need to be, because that's a whole nother story. If you get into a completely digital currency, that's giving too much power to the people that have the switch.
Absolutely.
So that's a whole nother discussion.
And to this point, because I love these ideas, especially the blood bank, wonder if this will be part of this question. But my next question is, if elected to your position, what are your goals and objectives for your first year?
Well, a couple of them I've talked about as far as already. The communication, definitely, as far as setting up, getting more communication out about what we're doing on the General Executive Council. Maybe getting more of the other communication stuff I talked about going, as far as more YouTube, more digital content being made. I'd like to have part in that. And of course, one of the main things is working on not only paying off for the development of the National Confederate Museum. Anybody can go out and fundraise, but if you can get, but from a certain standpoint, you have more people's ear when you're talking about the fundraisers. I can go around as just a member of the SCV and say, hey, give money to the museum. Or when you're an officer of when you travel around, you make it a point and you have people's ear. You get a platform from which to make the pitch for what we're doing. And I understand there's some more ideas to fundraisers that are in the works. I've got a couple of ideas that I want to pitch to the GEC as far as how to structure what we're paying for and when we're paying for it. And some of that I don't really want to get into now until I have a chance to vet it some more. So, but yeah, that's just the main things I want to work on is the museum and the communication and fundraising.
Well, that's great, and I think we all know that all of this is going to require working together, and it moves into my next question, which is, how would you define effective teamwork within the Sons of Confederate Veterans?
Some things get to be old sayings because they're true. One old saying is, it's amazing what you can get done if you don't care about who gets the credit. Unfortunately, what we see sometimes is people care very much who get the credit, but they're not necessarily the people who deserve the credit sometimes. So, but the idea of teamwork is that everybody needs to know that we're all on the same team and that we're a team of equals. I've said all along, and other people do. It doesn't matter that I have a position or a title. I'm still primarily an SCV member. I just happen to have this role I'm doing right now. And you have your role that you're doing, and everybody should have their role that they're doing. You know, this isn't, even if it is the actual military. One of the sayings I like is, people don't follow somebody into combat because of what's on their collar. They do it because of who the person is. I was doing a reenactment one time, and I just had on a battle shirt or something. And one guy says, "Well, I've got some captain's bars if you want to borrow them." I said, "Well, I'm standing out front yelling commands, waving a sword. If they don't know I'm the captain at this point, I don't think putting something on my collar is going to matter." So teamwork means that you have to find it really gets involved, and you really get this involved on the local level or on a committee level. Is part of leadership is developing new leadership, finding out what people's talents are, cultivating those talents, getting them to use those talents to the organization's benefit, and then recognizing them for the work that they do. And I think that helps build a cohesive team when you use people to their best talents. They know that they're being effective in what they're doing, and what they're doing is appreciated.
Absolutely. And with teamwork, right? It's group dynamics. And with teamwork also comes conflict. And my next question is about that. So I want to ask, what is the number one thing we can do to bring the membership together and prevent division?
Boy, you know, that's tough. You can have 3 people in a room and have an argument. You talk about as varied an organization we are. There are 2 topics that are guaranteed to start a fight within the SCV: SEC football and barbecue. Okay. Some of the biggest arguments I've ever seen in the SEC are barbecue. Who has the right barbecue? What color it's supposed to be? And where did it start? And if people get that worked up about barbecue, imagine what they'll do about their heritage and their family history and stuff. So, you know, one of the things about, we need to be tolerant of one another, you know, and I don't mean to use a buzzword there, but different people in different areas are dealing with different landscape. You know, that was one of the things. I was fortunate to be chief of staff nationally early in my career, and I got to see what's going on all over the Confederation. You know, for example, I'm here in Louisiana. You're in Detroit. You're in Jersey. Are you from Jersey? I'm from Jersey. You might remember that. Was it Joe Piscopo, who just turned 81 this week? But we're dealing with different stuff. I mean, now it's harder to do everywhere. But, you know, there was a guy, used to be a national officer at one time, and he was a doctor, rich, pretty well-to-do guy from a big Midwestern city. And people used to go, "Oh, well, he's not really that hard on heritage defense." I said, well, you know, in the circles he comes from, just being seen with a battle flag is pretty courageous. So we need to recognize that it's not one size fits all. You go in it, don't go over here and complain about how that guy's doing something if you don't know the history of what he's dealing with in the area he's dealing with it. So one of the ways we cannot have some division is to do our homework before we criticize. Find out what's really the landscape where this particular thing is going on. And then we will understand better how we can be a help instead of just, you know, throwing tomatoes from the balcony. That's part of the answer, I guess.
I think that was a fantastic answer.
It is seeing the point of view.
100%. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit from, you know, we've kind of bounced off of the last question into the next one for a few, but I'm going to ask you this. If you would, tell me how, and it doesn't have to be necessarily within the SCV, although you certainly have the SCV experience to probably pull from here, but tell me how you solved a problem that you were faced with using your own initiative or out-of-the-box thinking?
Well, we came up with a program to sell blood to raise money for the ACV. But never mind. That was pretty out of the box. In fact, you can't even see the box from here. Well, how about let's build a museum? How about that for an out of the box idea at one point? See, if people don't understand some of the original stuff, it wasn't just build a museum, but that whole office complex that's with it, that was necessary as well. If you people that go back, we used to have all our offices in the house and different bedrooms. We couldn't even use the house for tours and weddings and stuff back then because we had all our junk piled up in it. So that was necessary if we were going to continue and be a first-class operation, was just to have some new office space. And then we bought the land to put it all. So, and of course that wasn't just my idea, but we started that under my administration. And a lot of people have had a lot of input and involved in it and are still working hard. Especially shout out to AOT Commander Jimmy Hill, who's worked all this time putting up the timeline that we have in there, which is really the main point of the museum. But, I like to think that I solve things, that I can, even around the house. And I'm kind of a handyman. The only thing I really won't fool with is electrical stuff because I don't want to get fried. But, I fix my own plumbing. I do build stuff. I build all my own deer stands. They're really nice too. 4x6 box stands, whatever. But of course, I had to be a problem solver being a teacher because a lot of times you really have to. The saying my father used to say, because he was a minister, part of the key is meeting people where they're at, not where you want them to be. So to think out of the box, okay, where is this person at, and how do I get him where he needs to be? And that's how you look at all the problems you have. Okay, what is the problem? Have a clear vision of what the problem is, no matter how ugly it might be. Then you decide what your goal is, and then you figure out what steps will move it from here to there. So, a lot of things I've done like that over the years as far as problem solving. I don't know how many things you think of out of the box, but I kind of live that way in many ways. Out of the box or in a cage, whatever.
That's what I love about you, Past Commander-in-Chief, the innovation, the creativity, and that skill. Meeting people where they're at is so critical in every area of life. It's a hallmark of motivational interviewing, which when you understand that, you can become an effective leader in anything that y'all do. Definitely a critical skill. And, to that point, because we have a lot of members in the SCV, some of them have ancestry, some of them don't have ancestry. And my next question is, what are your thoughts about the associate membership program at the camp level and the Friends of the SCV program?
All right, funny you should mention that up because I've been having discussions about this very thing. In fact, I'm going to be offering a constitutional amendment this year that addresses the idea of associate membership. Okay, because all across the Confederation, you see it used in different ways. And we really need one definition of what it means. And we really need one definition of what our affiliated, like-minded people is as well. Right now, you can do Friends of the SCV. You've got Confederate Legion also that like-minded non-members can be involved in. But to me, associate member is a term you use for someone who is actually a member. And my idea is that an associate member is you belong to one camp and you can associate with other camps. Like, I'm going to go hang out with them and be an associate member. But you're only enumerated for voting and whatnot in your main camp. That's how a lot of people do associate membership. Now, we do need a place for people who don't necessarily have the ancestry. But I would not use the term member because that means something specific. Words have meanings. So one thing to do would maybe combine and not duplicate. Like you could have the Confederate Legion and the Friends and make it the same thing, not duplicate what we're doing. Maybe even come up with a third thing, call them the Confederate Reserve Corps or something like that, But we do need to encourage, just so that our lady supporters can even be a part of it. So yes, associate membership to me is you are a member and you're associated with another camp. But we need a unified, coherent program for non-qualifying people to also be involved.
That's an excellent answer. And
I didn't
I've
pay
thought
him
many
to say that, by the way.
no,
I didn't pay him to say that he likes anything I'm saying. So
no, but I've thought some of the same things myself. You need to have those defined boundaries between those things. So that was a great answer. I appreciate that. Now this is going to sort of sound a little similar to a question that was asked earlier, but it really is different when you think about it. If you're to win the upcoming election, what does the title of ATM councilman mean to you?
Well, there's several facets to that. You probably didn't realize that how complicated that question could actually be. One, the fact that it's the ATM councilman. I'm born and bred here in west of Big Muddy. I have a lot of pride in being a part of the Army of Trans-Mississippi. Our reenacting unit is called the Trans-Mississippi Volunteer Infantry. We fought a lot of battles over here. We killed a lot of Yankees, and we don't always get credit for it. Some people think the war was only fought in Virginia or only fought in Tennessee. We have a saying for the ATM: war to the knife and knife to the hilt. Talk about Bloody Bill. All that kind of stuff was going on out here, where civilians were being rounded up and killed. I mean, it was ugly, which is why we were some of the last states, so-called, to be brought back into the Union. So just being a part of the ATM, I'm proud of that. A lot of my Confederate ancestors served from the state of Louisiana. And my wife has some that served from Texas. Me and my father and his side are all from Louisiana. My mother was born and raised in East Texas. So, and my great-great-grandfather was buried in Arkansas. So I'm kind of the ATM partly here. Plus, we're a very large geographic army. Now, the councilman part, the word councilman, as Benny will know, counselor kind of connotates that you've got some kind of wisdom to give people, or that you can help them through their problems. So I guess in a way, being a councilman also connotates that you're a facilitator for people that for engaging with national or with the things that they're doing. So that part of it, that's what that means to me. As far as being elected, I guess nothing could be hardly more coveted than the approval of your compatriots. I mean, I think so highly of our members, and the fact that they would trust me with a position like that, I take not only as a compliment, but as humbling. It is a, I don't want to say burden. Better word is, it is an obligation on my part to do the job as best as possible, because they have put their trust in me. So that's what it means to have that position and to be elected to it.
I love that. And to the point as a counselor, right? It's one of the most difficult jobs, because going into the field, I always thought, oh, you're kind of like lay down on the Freudian couch, tell me your problems. And in reality, a lot of it has to do with education. And that brings me to my next question, because that was a perfect example right there. How important is it for the SCV to be explaining what we stand for when we're out in public, whether it's an event, we're going flagging, something like that, or charity, but when we're out there?
It is priority numero uno. Okay. Because everything we want to do and accomplish, we're going to need more people on our side to do it. We need more members. We need more funds. We need more access to public events and venues. So the way you do that is you got to open doors. And the way you open doors is to convince people that even if they don't agree with us, that we're okay and that we have our place at the table. So, we can't just shut the door and say, leave us alone, because eventually they'll knock down the door. They're not going to leave us alone. You have to be on the offensive when it comes to the information and image war. So that is job one, letting the public know, not only who our ancestors were, but, and I've said this on another forum, but who we are. We're good people. All my friends are all SCV people. We need to sell ourselves as much as we need to sell our ancestors so that people want to be associated with us and part of us.
I've said for a while now that if everybody would in some way, I'm not saying that you have to put the battle flag out on a flagpole in front of your house. If you can do that, that's wonderful. But in some way represent the Confederacy everywhere you go. Now, I live here in the burbs of Detroit, and everywhere I go, I wear a hat with the battle flag on it. If everybody could find something, maybe wear something with Robert E. Lee's picture or Confederate hero, something that'll get somebody to look and be like, oh, and then your friends are looking like, oh, wow. And then people start thinking, well, these are good guys. These are good people. They helped me out last week. They've done this. They're part of my church. They do whatever. That's the kind of thing that shows, hey, we're not out there to hurt anybody. As a matter of fact, our only goal is to honor veterans, our family members who served. That's it. That's all we want to do. We don't want to hurt nobody or offend anybody.
Well, there's a few people I wouldn't mind offending, but that brings another point I've always talked about, is how we conduct ourselves. Okay, an oratory speech many years ago, I made the point that one of us can make all of us look bad.
That's right.
Or one of us can make all of us look good. So if people know you're an SCV member, you need to behave yourself right. On Facebook, there's a lot of, pretty chippy stuff I'd like to say sometimes. But I'm a past commander-in-chief of the SCV. It would reflect on the SCV if I go out there and sling stuff at people inappropriately. So, you don't need to be driving around with an SCV sticker and cutting people off in traffic and flipping them the bird.
Right.
You have to conduct yourself in a way that reflects honorably on who we're supposed to be. Southern gentlemen, doesn't mean we don't fight, but we stand for principle. And the best way to get people to believe in those principles is to emulate them. Where does that word emulate come up in the charge?
Absolutely. We have reached within the 10-minute mark of an hour. So I'm gonna skip over a question that we did have in the list, but I'm gonna ask this one. How do you personally stay current with the latest developments in the SCV?
I talk to animals. They're spies. You didn't know this. You know the whole deal about birds aren't real. They're all actually robots run by the government. Well, I've tied into their network. Yeah. Don't call somebody a bird brain because they're computerized. Okay, you want a real answer now. Well, like I said, the only reason I'm ever on Facebook is because of SCV stuff. I don't care what somebody's cat did yesterday, or any of that stuff. I'm on there to see what's going on around the Confederation. I survey web links. Every once in a while, I'll just do a search for Confederate and stuff like that and see what comes up. You know, I'll go down rabbit holes. I'll look, I'll do searches on YouTube and those sorts of things. So, and, you know, and publications. When I got nothing else to do, I'll go on the internet and just go and start looking at random camps websites and see what they're going on in their area and see what they're doing. Why not? It's fascinating. I did a lot of that when I was commander in chief. Fortunately, because there was a couple of websites, I had to contact them and tell them they needed to take some stuff down they had on their website. There was one website where they had women of the SCV on there. Yeah. It reminded me of the old Lenny Bruce joke. It was the kind of woman that wore a see-through dress and you didn't want to. So yeah, go out there and look and go and read their online newsletters, you know, see what they're doing on Facebook. Read everything the SCV puts out, go and look at their websites, what they're going on, search news stations. If you know people around the Confederation, call them up and visit with them. We all have a friend that does a lot of that.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's, you know, the main way I keep current is I'm just nosy. Besides talking to the animals.
Oh.
What was that? Okay.
Hank's the receptor. All the feedback goes into Hank.
Yeah, he's my press secretary. So he's better at it than the current one, I guarantee you that.
I think we got time for another one, Vinny, if you want to shoot one out.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. This one's a really cool one. It's more of the business oriented part of it. And it's how do you determine or evaluate success for the position that you're running for?
Well, you know, that's not real quantitative because it's not like, oh, how many clicks or likes can I get, you know, and which that doesn't really mean anything, or, you know, and it's not like, well, first of all, I guess it would just be the feedback of the membership. You know, they determine, you know, the old saying is, you know, what was it that Stonewall would say? Duty is ours, judgment is God's. So you do your duty, and history and God will be the judge of what you did. And in that way, you know, the membership will not have been Lee. I think it was Stonewall. I'll have to look up. It might have been
Stonewall because I
you were
actually
correct.
Ours, you know, judgment is God, something like that.
The consequences are God's, I believe is the quote.
I have it right on my
phone. Okay, then it's my quote then. That duty is ours and the judgment is God's. Though we do have to make judgments about the effectiveness of things, or we have to evaluate the effectiveness of things so that we know how to proceed. But as far as how I'm doing, believe me, I'll hear about it from our members. I remember one time when our convention was in Hot Springs in 2009, I said during one of our meetings, I said, I'm not worried about the leadership in the future of the SCV because right now I've got 5,000 members who are willing to tell me how I'm supposed to be doing my job every day.
To that with the membership is how important is the membership feedback to you?
Well, I mean, that's why we exist, right? You have to take the membership feedback coupled with what other information you got. I know people, and I don't like it either, but there are times where at that moment, the GEC cannot share everything they know because once it's out there, you know, and who knows who's going to get it and what they're going to do with it. But in general, you know, you have to go, you know, you can't always just say, well, you know, let them decide. You have to lead sometimes. Sometimes you have to say, I think this is what we need to do. And you need to convince the membership that it's the right thing. There's another old political saying, the art of politics, the successful art of politics, is to get somebody else to do what you want them to do, but make them think it's their idea. So sometimes that's a part of leadership. You convince people, oh, here's this, and we might can do that. And everybody goes, well, let's do this. And you go, great idea. Let's do that. So, yeah, I mean, we're about the membership and we're responsive to it.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, I think here we are at the 55-minute mark. We don't want to go too long. So I think that we could probably go ahead and make that the last question for the program.
As Arlo Guthrie said one time when singing Alice's Restaurant, he said, I'll wait and let it come around again. He says, I'm not tired. I'm not proud either. So we can end it here. I'll tell you what, let me say right now, I appreciate everybody who's going to take the time to watch all the candidates. Even if it's not somebody in your Army, watch what they have to say, because they may be on the GEC. They may have an idea that you like, that you want to implement too. You may have some feedback to something they've said that they may want to hear from you. So watch all of these, and also watch what the chat's doing. Everybody should be more engaged. And the people are working really hard to get a lot of the members' information out there. I would also, I was talking earlier about all the landscape out there. I really appreciate, John, you in Michigan, and Vinny, you up in Jersey, and the job y'all do behind enemy lines. If you live in a small town in South Alabama, you don't necessarily have the same challenges that the two of you have to deal with sometimes. It's gotten worse everywhere, but let you know what you're doing is appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. That means a lot. And I want to thank you again for being willing to come on the program to speak with the membership of the SCV, particularly those within the Army of Trans-Mississippi Department, and to give everyone an opportunity to see and hear from you as a candidate who they will have, the members of the ATM will have an opportunity to vote for at the SCV National Reunion in North Charleston, South Carolina this July. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we close?
Just to all of our compatriots out there, even if it seems difficult and if you're not getting anywhere, keep at it, because you never know the ramifications of what you're doing and who sees it and what it might mean to them, and you never know it. So just keep doing your duty and keep your head up and keep your flag flying.
Thank you so much again, Chuck. And thank you to everyone watching. I hope that this helps you, the viewer, to be a more informed voter when we meet as a band of brothers later this summer at the National Reunion. On behalf of my co-host, compatriot Vinny Balducci from Private Meredith Pool Camp 1505 out of Hamilton, New Jersey, and also our producer, compatriot Dennis Palmer from Secession Camp number 4 out of Charleston, South Carolina. My name is Jonathan McLeese, Admiral Raphael Sims, Camp 1321, Dearborn, Michigan, and I thank you for joining us for this edition of Meet the Candidate 2024. God bless, and Deo Vindice.
Deo Vindice, y'all.